Next, when he came to office, the British Prime Minister declared that the first duty of a leader is to keep the country safe. Well, this week his Defence Secretary John Healey resigned. This note that he left, well, he told his boss he was making the country less safe. It was a stinging letter. He claimed Sir Keir was unable to make the financial commitments needed to defend the country against the spectre of a Russian attack. A second Defence Minister resigned too, Carns, same reasons. They'd seen a long-delayed British defence plan, still not made public. Tobias Ellwood is a former Conservative MP, former chair of the Defence Select Committee and former British Army officer as well. Great to talk to you, Tobias. Welcome to France 24.
Yeah, pleasure to be with you this evening.
First of all, you've not held back. I could talk about the kind of studs up resignation letter from John Healey, but you're pretty forthright in your, well, what you think the consequences, not to Keir Starmer and his premiership, but to the realm, to the UK.
Yes, I mean, I've been calling for many years for an increase in defence spending. We need to come to terms with the fact that we've had relative peace since the end of the Cold War, but those days are very much over. And we now need to prepare for a very darker chapter. And we can't do that unless we invest in defence. And what John Healey has done is actually quite unusual for British politics. He's done something very rare in resigning on principle. You don't see that too often in British politics. And it has exposed and generated a huge debate here in Britain about just how safe we are. We've recently had the head of MI6, our spy agency, the head of GCHQ, the head of the armed forces, all saying that we are under threat and we are under prepared. The question is, therefore, where does the money come from? And that's the big question mark now, because do you cut other government departments or do you increase taxes? What actually happens? What I'm pleased about is the fact that we are now absolutely talking about this. The closer you get to Russia across Europe, the more you see defence spending increase as a percentage of GDP. And Britain now needs to catch up.
You will know John Healey. You're both prominent figures in UK defence policy and Parliament for years. I think John served under 4 or 5 different Labour leaders, despite the fact that you're on the other side of the party lines. You've said something interesting. It doesn't appear that John Healey is about to launch into the leadership race along with Andy Burnham in the coming days. He said that's not his interest. This is not manoeuvres, it seems, of somebody who's basically wanting to see the imminent downfall of Keir Starmer. But it's calibrated, clearly, because he went into the detail not just of unable and unwilling of Keir Starmer in the Treasury, but also talking about saying that Keir Starmer said that the threat could be as early as 2030, quoting intelligence services. He knew the discussion that would be had, and I guess to the extent of you knowing, John, that how vital, how dangerous this moment is.
Yes, I mean, you raised a really interesting point about the man himself, John Healey. We should make it very clear that he's been a staunch Keir Starmer ally for decades. They've been close friends themselves. So for somebody to step out in this way and criticise the Prime Minister and the direction of travel is huge. It's absolutely been quite jaw-dropping here. Don't forget, back in February at the Munich Security Conference, we heard our Prime Minister, Keir Starmer, making it very, very clear. He understood in speaking to allies that Europe is in a very dangerous place, that we're not managing the Russian aggression. You've just been speaking about what's going on in the Middle East. Conflict is growing across the world. Our global order is actually beginning to fragment. We're seeing our adversaries starting to group together to challenge our way of life. What are we doing about it? And that requires not just leadership and statecraft, it requires investment in hard power too. And that's the bit that John Healey was saying is absent from the direction of travel. It is Britain, along with France and other nations, that normally steps forward when other nations hesitate. We can't do that if we don't invest in our hard power.
And you've said before, this is something that you've raised previously with the Conservatives. It's not just landed suddenly on Keir Starmer's desk. This has been kind of years of attrition. At some point now, it's how you go forward in an age, and I think this was mentioned as well by Carns, that if you spend billions on certain infrastructure, when actually it costs thousands for drones and capabilities with AI now, it's got to be advancing at a fast rate. You said this, though, Tobias, as well, on X. You said, expect Britain's security to be tested by Russia very soon. Now, people take your word seriously, given the jobs, positions that you've had. Just expand on that for us.
So it is a wake-up call. We should recognize that Russia is testing Britain all the time. We have aircraft that are intruding into our airspace. We have undersea capabilities as well as surface fleets come in and intrude on our territorial waters. Our undersea cables are constantly being monitored, and indeed, they're being mapped out by Russia as well. So I expect that Putin will be watching this carefully and decide to toy with us, to almost to make the point of just how exposed we are. I don't think anything serious will happen immediately, but if you recall what happened during the Iranian crisis recently, when the war started, the Cyprus, our base there, was attacked by a Shahad drone coming from, I think it may have been the Houthis, but either way, it was supporting Iran. Imagine one of those heading Britain's way, heading towards Portsmouth, our big naval base, heading towards London. We have no air defenses here whatsoever. So across all domains of war, land, sea, air, space, nuclear, cyber, disinformation, but particularly the industrial capacity, our ability to regenerate. You know, we have 150 main battle tanks, arguably some of the best in Europe. But after the first battle, what's going to replace them? It's this sort of mindset, this sort of thinking that we now need to get ourselves into, even introducing national service. I would wager we would have to return to that in the next 5 years.
Now, in the headlines are encroaching in the next 2 minutes, but I would like your thought on this, because you said at the beginning, and I'd like to expand. You said this also could be a good moment, because this is a moment where we might be seeing the end of the Starmer empire. I don't mean it's a good moment for him, regardless of that. But whatever happens next, whether it's him or what come next, this is going to hurt moment in terms of other cuts being made. But doesn't this give somebody the platform to say, this is how serious it is? They're backed up by this.
Yes, exactly right. I mean, let's be blunt about this. This is 1937 all over again. We're seeing adversaries starting to group together. We're seeing rearmament taking place. But we're also seeing a sense of risk aversion, if you like. And the international institutions, back then it was the League of Nations, today it's the United Nations, unable to hold these errant nations to account. So this is like a wake-up call. It is telling Britain and the British people, we want more. And there's a message there to government to say, raise your game.
We still have a moment. I want to get your thought on this, Tobias. I'm pushing it because I think we have a little time with you. If you look around Europe right now, Zelensky and others, are you admiring, perhaps jealous of other countries and other leaders right now that you think you want that type of character in Downing Street?
A really good question. What is statecraft? What is leadership? Just as our parliamentary system means you have to be a member of parliament to then become a minister. I would like that system to change so we can actually get the great and the good in Britain to step forward. But I would say collectively, Europe needs to raise its game. We've watched and hesitated when Ukraine called for help. NATO, the biggest, most formidable military alliance the world has ever seen, still sitting on its hands when Ukraine is calling for help. We need to step forward and rekindle a sense of Cold War statecraft to stand up to Putin and look him in the eye.
Really good to talk to you. Thank you, Tobias.
Thank you.
Tobias Ellwood, former Conservative MP, former chair of the Defence Select Committee in the UK. Stay with us. We'll be back in just a moment.